Hi everyone, I'm going to do an updated go-to art supplies video because it's been a while since I've talked about what my favorite supplies are to use, and I can refer people to this video whenever they ask me what I use to make my art, because I get a lot of questions about that, especially on social media, because not everything is always linked on like Instagram posts and stuff like that. In YouTube I link everything below, but I wanted to talk about my go-to favorite art supplies, and some of them are going to be the same from last time, but there's some new ones as well because I've been working a little bit differently since the last video that I made. So what should we start with? First of all, I get a lot of questions about my digital art, and I just want to say what I use is the iPad Pro 12. It's the 3rd generation. I'll link it on screen, but I have a matte screen protector on it, which helps with the grit for drawing. It gives you some resistance. And the brushes I use, a lot of them are from Max Packs. Yeah. His watercolor brushes are really great, and his retro brushes are great as well. And I'll link those below. They're my favorite brushes to use, and I also use some of my own custom brushes, and I use Dina Norland's pencil brushes. So I'll link all the brushes I use below, and I'll link what iPad I use in the screen protector that's on it. This is what I use for my digital art. Oh, and I use Procreate, the program Procreate, which is pretty much the iPad standard. Clip Studio Paint is good as well, but I use Procreate because I just know it. So all my iPad links will be below if you want to know. Now, for traditional art, here's everything I use. My main medium that I work with is watercolor and now pencil crayon, and I combine the two and I do a bit of gouache on top. So I'll start with the paper. I'm not loyal to one specific type of paper. I change it up a lot. But lately I got a subscription box from Sketchbox a while ago. It came with this Fluid 100 cold press paper. It's 100% cotton. And for my birthday, I got a big pack of it. And I'm excited to use this because it's 100% cotton, and I just like the way it holds the paper. I find I like cold press more than hot press now. In my other video, I recommended hot press, but I do like cold press a little bit better. I like the texture. I'm starting to embrace texture a lot more. I also use this, I thought it was like Meeden brand, but I use this watercolor paper as well. I don't think it's like the best ever, but it's big and good for the price. 100% cotton as well. I would recommend getting 100% cotton watercolor paper. This one is hot pressed, so I used to use Arch's hot pressed paper, but Amazon stopped carrying it and it was impossible to find, so I switched to this one. But if you can find Arch's hot pressed, I would recommend that more because Arch's is just very good watercolor paper. If you get Arch's, any type of Arch's watercolor paper is always like very good. I use it a lot in school. I also sometimes use this paper. I ripped the back off because I had to use it to stiffen an envelope. Someone sent me this in the mail, and I still don't know who sent me this package. It was like a few years ago, and they sent me this Fabriano hot pressed watercolor paper. This one's 25% cotton, 9x12. It's very smooth, but they said it was some of their favorite paper, so they wanted me to try it, and I feel like it's worked well. So another thing you can try out if you want. Something else that is like a random thing that I got like 2 Christmases ago or something, is this thing you can use to squeeze paint out of tubes. You can use it for toothpaste as well. You put it in and you turn this and it like squishes all the paint out, and it just helps with making sure that the paint doesn't like get stuck in all the cracks and get dried out, and you can get the most for your product. This has been a very good addition. I recommend every artist that paints a lot get one of these. It saves you a lot of hassle from squeezing them out yourself. Now, what do I use to like sketch and draw and like stuff that isn't painting? I'm going to talk about my paints in a bit. I just want to talk about some pencils that I like. My favorite thing to use is the Prismacolor Terracotta. This is a Prismacolor color erase, and it's supposed to be able to erase a little bit. It kind of erases. It erases better than a regular pencil crayon, but not as good as graphite. But I like to use this to sketch anything out I'm going to be painting. because it's just a nice earthy color that blends into the kinds of palettes I use a lot. And I have these in all the colors. Sometimes I use different colors. I just love sketching with these. I recommend them, especially terracotta. If you work similarly to me, the terracotta color is really natural and nice, and I've been saying this for years, how much I love using these Prismacolor Color Erase Terracotta. It's got an eraser on the back too. For doing brushwork, I tend to buy Tombow brush pens, and I will link them below, but I think these are pretty popular. One of them is like soft and one of them is harder. Depends on what kind of lines you like to do. I use these a lot for Inktober and for doing any kind of like brushwork in my sketchbooks. I don't really use these on final paintings, but I use them a lot because my sketchbook work makes up most of what I draw. So stuff I use in my sketchbook are things that I end up using a lot. I like to use just regular HB pencils, any type of pencil, it doesn't matter, just like cheap graphite pencils are a very good sketching tool. There's a reason why they're so popular and so many people just use like pencils. This is just a Staedtler blue pencil, and I've sharpened it with a knife like I do with all my pencils, which I will explain why. Someone commented once, why are all your pencils look like that? And it's because I sharpen them with a knife. Another pencil I really like is the Faber-Castell 9000. This one is 8B, and I like to sketch with the 8B because it's just good for really dark lines. Yeah, I just bought a bunch of them. I have a lot of the Faber-Castell ones. I think they're pretty good. I also just use like cheap mechanical pencils sometimes. I haven't really used a mechanical pencil in a while, but I do use this mechanical pencil, and it is a 2B lead, 2mm lead in a Mars Technico holder. It holds a big, thick chunk of lead, and I think it came with HB, but right now I have 2B lead inside of it, and you sharpen it with the back. The back comes off, and you can sharpen the front with the end of it. And I love sketching with this. It's my favorite thing to sketch with because it's so thick, and it feels like you're using an actual pencil, but you don't have to sharpen it because the back clicks and it comes out the end. Erasers, a lot of my favorite erasers have ended up being Staedtler erasers. So this is the Staedtler Mars plastic eraser with the eraser holder. It's my favorite eraser for doing fine erasing in like detailed areas. And I also use the black one. I just find this one works really well. The only downside is you can't see if there's any like residue on the eraser because it is black. But I mean, I've used it a lot and I like it. I don't really like buy specific erasers because I don't go through them very fast, so I just end up grabbing whatever I have, but I do like these too. I still feel like I have yet to find a brush that is perfect, but this is one that somebody sent to me, and it's called the Princeton Heritage, or it might have come in a subscription box. I can't remember where these things come from, but I really like this brush. It's held up really well. I feel like it's the perfect size for doing small watercolor paintings and for doing sketchbook work, and it's just good. It's a good detail brush. And I really like this brush. It's size 6, Princeton Heritage. I think it was given to me in one way or another, but I like it and I want to buy more of them to see how well they hold up. In my previous videos, I talk a lot about how I use Zen brushes, but I don't really think they're that good, honestly. I don't know if I just like abuse my brushes, but like I do really like them, but maybe I didn't buy the right size, but this one has held up really well. Maybe I do recommend them. I'm not really sure. Like that red brush right there, I really like. Maybe it's the size. This is like a size 2 Zen, Royal, and Langnickel brush. I think they're pretty good though. They're affordable. But I kind of am starting to feel like I want to like invest in a good brush that will last a long time, because it really is annoying trying to paint and all your brushes are fraying and bending and you can't get a clean line. Something I recently bought on Amazon is these Fumi brushes. I don't know how good they are, but I like them and I've been using them. I've had them for a while. I think they might be actual hair, like squirrel or horse or something. I don't know what they use for real brushes, but I bought them because I just wanted to see. They seemed pretty good, and they've been holding up well. And they came in all these sizes, and when you wet them, they kind of come to a point. But as you can see, they're kind of like a little bit frayed. But when you actually paint with them, they're okay. So I don't really know how good these are, but they're holding up okay. I've yet to find like a brush that I'm like, this is my holy grail. This is one of my favorite brushes I have. It is a Zen Royal and Langnickel brush. It's like a gigantic one that's good for doing a big wash, and I love this brush. It's so useful. You can also use it to brush stuff off of things because it's so soft. It feels like a makeup brush. It's called MD size. I don't really know what that means, but I like this brush. Now for watercolors that I use Shinahan watercolors, professional, the PWC Extra Fine Artist watercolor. This one is Horizon Blue. This one is Ultramarine Light. These are very easy for me to get at my local art store. They're a good price. They're very pigmented. They come off the palette easily. The thing about these is they're more opaque than other watercolors. I think they're like on the more opaque side, but they're still pretty transparent. And I really like them. If I'm feeling fancy, I use my Schmincke Horadam watercolors, and they are more translucent and they spread more amongst each other, and they're harder to lift off the paper. So if that's something that you like, I would definitely recommend these. They're really good quality watercolors. I just kind of like using these slightly cheaper ones because you can lift them off the paper and they don't bleed as much, and I feel like I have more control and I'm more used to using the Shinahan watercolors. But the Schmincke ones are very good quality if you want something that just feels like it's so pigmented and it's a really great experience painting with it. You can't really lift it very easily. Depending on what paper you use, maybe you can. Maybe my paper was bad, but sometimes it's nice when watercolors stay put so your layering doesn't mess with the layers below. So I always recommend these two brands. Some other brands that I know are good are Daniel Smith and Core watercolors. I've heard really good things about those two, but I've just stuck with these because I don't need to buy any more. They work good for me, so I'm happy. I also like to keep a big tube of white gouache when I do watercolor painting, because if you squeeze a little bit on your watercolor palette, you can mix it in with your other colors and do some opaque detailing on top. I also like to use gouache when I'm doing opaque details on top. If you need to fix stuff up or do paint overs on top of your watercolor, that will completely cover it up. Gouache is your best friend. Specifically, not acrylic gouache, unless you want to use acrylic gouache. So I just like grabbed this one because it was on Amazon. Decent reviews, so worked fine for me. If I'm doing a gouache painting, my favorite gouache to use is the Holbein Artist gouache. They used to look like this, now they look like this. They're my favorite. I don't really know why they're my favorite. I like their primary set of cyan, magenta, yellow, white, and black. That's what really made me love gouache, using that mixing set. And I remember it was so hard to find them at one time, and then they rebranded and then everything looked like this instead of this. I honestly prefer this more. I think this looks better, but, well, not the size, it's like the label style. I think the old way looked better. This is the gouache that I use. It's not acrylic gouache. That means when it dries, you can add water and it will still rework and move around. Acrylic gouache will not do that. So acrylic gouache looks and feels like gouache, but it stays put. So if that's something you want, you should get acrylic gouache. And the acrylic gouache I would recommend is the Holbein acrylic gouache. So they look like this. They're pretty popular. They're pretty expensive. But if you just get the primary mixing colors, you can probably get a lot of paintings out of them. I don't really use them a lot because I'm not a huge fan of acrylic gouache. It just like dries and it's so permanent. I like to be able to rework all my paint on my palette and not worry about like potentially wasting a big amount that I squeezed out. Something that is new, I've been using pencil crayons a lot, and not just to outline things. I've been using them to add details, to do more sketching. I've been really incorporating pencil crayons into my work a lot more than I have in the past. And the pencil crayons I like the most are the Prismacolor Premier pencils. You can tell how much I use these because it's just like, I have so many tiny pencils. Well, that one's not that tiny. But I have so many little baby pencils, and I have to put them in holders so that I can actually use them. Also, these holders I would recommend. If your pencils get too small to use, you put them in one of these and suddenly you can use them again. So the little baby pencils, they just fit right into the end. I got kind of cheap ones. The metal ones usually are better because they last longer. The cheap ones have been like breaking, but I like these metal ones because you can tighten it and loosen it. So I'd recommend you get the metal one. I'll try to find a link. Prismacolor Premier pencil crayons. They go on very thick, they're very smooth and buttery, and I love them for that. They can be weird to sharpen though, because apparently their like manufacturing process sometimes makes it so that the lead is not centered, But all of these look pretty good. These are some new ones I bought recently to replace my baby pencils that got too small to use. The lead looks pretty centered, but this one is not centered. I prefer to sharpen things with a knife. I just use like a regular X-Acto knife. I bought a box of 12 on Amazon a few years ago. They've been lasting me a long time. I sharpen all my pencils with a knife. I've just had too much breakage with sharpeners and the lead just snaps off, and you have more control on the shape of the tip with an X-Acto knife like this, a craft knife. Make sure that you are careful when you use it, of course, and if you're too scared to use a knife to sharpen it, just use a pencil sharpener. It's honestly fine. But this is just how I like to do it, so if you wonder why all my pencils look like that at the end, I use a knife to sharpen them, and it's pretty fun to do. And I feel like I waste way less pencil this way. I always have to have a sketchbook going at all times. I think sketching is a really great way to keep up your skills and your like idea flow and to not get rusty when you draw. The one I'm using right now, I jump around with sketchbook brands. I try to just use up what I have because I know I'm going to be going through a lot of sketchbooks in my lifetime, and I want to make use of the ones that I have already. I got this one for Christmas a while ago. It's the Arteza watercolor sketchbook, and it's pretty big, and every time I check, it's not available on Amazon, so I'll try to find something similar, but I've used it a lot. It's great. The only downside with this sketchbook is that the paper is not the same on both sides. On the front, it is a nice cold press watercolor paper, and it's so nice to draw on. It's really nice sketchbook paper. On the back, it is this very like fragile, soft, smooth paper that you can't really erase pencil on, and it's kind of strange. So I've been trying to use the backs of the papers. I've been trying to use like ink and pencil and not erase anything, and watercolor can kind of work only if you want to like tone the paper, not do like a saturated watercolor painting. So keep that in mind if you get this. It is not the same on both sides of the paper. But I mean, it's a really big sketchbook, and I usually go for smaller ones, and I'm probably going to get a smaller one after this. It's just too big, honestly. Like, I like my sketchbook chapters to be shorter, and I like to fill sketchbooks quicker, so I can like do sketchbook tour videos and not take months to fill a sketchbook because it's really big, but maybe it's making me draw more than I normally would, so that's probably a good thing. It also has a clear pocket in the back to store things. It has an elastic closure, and it has a little tie. I prefer no spiral binding, but I'll still use a sketchbook if it has spiral binding. I just prefer the look and feel of this as long as it opens flat. If you can recommend me any watercolor sketchbooks that are like small squares that aren't like $30, let me know. I think that sums up everything. Those are all the supplies I use to make my art. If you have any questions, let me know. It's a little similar to the one I made like 2-3 years ago, but I wanted to update you on everything that I've been using and things that I like. I'm not too particular about the supplies that I use. I am a little particular, but I've kind of found what works for me, and I sort of just like stick with it. And if I try a new supply, sometimes I'll try it for a bit and just kind of go back to what I know. Like I bought oil pastels a few months ago, and I used them and I realized just how messy they are. I love the look of them, but they're so messy. So I still want to experiment with them, but they're not like a staple art supply. They're still something I'm trying out. So I didn't include those in here. A few other things to mention. I always have a water cup to put paint water in when I'm painting. You need a paper towel and tape to hold down the paper. Honestly, just like painter's tape is great. This one's really thick, so I kind of like rip it down the middle and then use that on all sides, and just use painter's tape. I find the green can kind of throw off the colors in what you're painting, so sometimes a more neutral painter's tape can work. And it's also useful to have a little container to hold your pencil shavings so it doesn't just go everywhere. That's something I always have on hand. And another thing I always have on hand is some kind of big brush to dust stuff, to get pencil shavings off, to clean dust off your scanner, to just like get your keyboard. A big brush is good for that. And I lost mine. I had the perfect brush in my last video that I used to dust everything off, and it's gone. I don't know where it is. It's been like a year or more. And I miss that brush and I would like to find it. Maybe I just need to order like a soft brush on Amazon for like cleaning stuff off, because honestly, maybe having a bigger one would be good. But it's just little things like that that I found that are really useful for me that I never thought would be. It's not like my favorite paint. It's more like this tiny little tool that helps me in my day-to-day tasks, and doing art and cleaning up messes and stuff like that. Having a spray bottle and some paper towel to like wipe down your desk, or like a towel, a rag, a cloth to like keep your desk clean is really helpful. And coasters. I'll show you my coasters. Last video, I only had 4 coasters of my dog, but that dog has passed away since then. And there's a new dog, and her name is Olive. This is when she was a puppy, but my sister gets me coasters of our dogs on them, and I always put my drink on it or like water cups, and it helps protect my desk surface. So I really hope this video was helpful, kind of like a big master list of everything that I use and that I like at this point in time. Links will be in the description. Make sure to check out my store. I have a lot of prints on there of my art, stickers, pins, original paintings. I even have my trading cards that I made. And my Patreon is monthly rewards shipped to you. It's $16 no matter where you live, no shipping. I send you a print from my sketchbook, a scan of some sketches I did over that month. I send you a limited run print. It's like a painting I make, and I send you a print of it every month, and a sticker, a high quality vinyl sticker. So you get 2 prints and a sticker mailed to you every month, no matter where you live. International, $16 for everybody. And I have sketchbook scans there, a huge backlog of content you can see. I scan all my sketchbooks and post them to Patreon, and I do newsletters where I update you about stuff I'm doing and stuff I'm working on, and like life stuff too. And there's podcasts. There's a lot of stuff on my Patreon, and there's a growing community there, and I'm really grateful for all the support that you've given me there. And it's always exciting to like have new people and grow the community there. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next video.